Okay, thank you everyone for coming to our show and tell on the 18th of August. It is the middle of the holiday period, so this is going to be fairly small and probably fairly quick. As ever, if anybody does have questions, please just interrupt one of us or put it into the chat. Questions are definitely encouraged throughout. So last time at our show and tell a couple of weeks ago, we talked about a lot. There was the Resident Information Platform API, List Endpoint, the Contact Details API, the Lambda Authorizer, the Tenancy API, the integrations, the Housing Platform API, the AWS presentation, and the roadmap, and my holiday photographs. And personally, I've been worried over the last couple of weeks that we seem to be slowing down, and yet I think this is evidence that we're really not, and that I'm worried about too much. So I'd like to express my appreciation to the team for all the hard work that has gone in over the last couple of weeks. It has been absolutely fantastic. So it's a little bit more of the same at this show and tell. And to start, we've got Hymira talking about the Resident Information Platform API.
Right, so welcome everyone. So I'm gonna do this as like little story, like we're making a cake. So we need our key ingredients, so like 3 main ingredients, and in this instance, it's an example of the Resident Information Platform API, where we've done, that's the sort of high level of it, and we've created and completed the search parameters, the end-to-end tests. And we've also got it done in production, we need to get it done in production and do it within the integration for the single view. So when we do the integration with the single view, we'll be able to see the Resident Information Platform API being used in a live current API, which is really good. And we learned a lot during the process of building a large API. We were able to integrate 3 different APIs within that. And hopefully in the future, we'll break it down much more into many smaller tasks to build our cake. And next goes okay.
Yep.
Hello. So the Authorization API. The authorizer is built using Lambda. It performs 2 functions. It generates a new JSON Web Token, or JWT, and authorizes access to an API. A JWT is a token containing encrypted information. The API authorization function is integrated into the AWS API Gateway service. Using the Lambda authorizer service requires calling a post endpoint, which takes parameters in a JSON formatted object. The parameters are passed and saved to the Postgres database and used to generate the token. The token can then be used on calls to an API. Tokens have an expiry date, which is stored in the database, along with information on which API the token is permitted to access. So what's next? Once the Lambda authorizer is integrated into the API gateway for an API, it can deny or allow access to the API based on information in the database and the token. I think Ben is next.
I am indeed. Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to be talking about the contact details endpoints post the API post endpoint. So this is when we want to write data to the database. Contact details are most often updated in CRM, so we need the ability to write back to that database. And this endpoint is going to create a new contact record against an existing resident record. Now, what that means, and we usually looked at creating a new resident record, but new contact with a new contact record. But this might create confusion and make the data hard to maintain, because if you're creating a new person every time somebody moves house, you end up without really a clear link of when that person's moving in their history of residency. So the setup we've gone reduces the potential for duplication and confusion, and it makes these data easier to maintain. The endpoint's going to accept a JSON object with several parameters, including whether it's a current, whether the account is, or the address and contact details are active and the default contact details for that person. and it creates creating a new record returns a 201 response, which basically confirms that the resident information has been updated with a newly created record. The build is complete, and we're going to actually be testing for production very shortly.
Thanks, Ben. I'll hand over to Rennie now to talk about something that was quite tricky over the last couple of weeks. It's not all been plain sailing.
Hi everyone, I'm Rennie. So I'll be taking you through an interesting thing we came across while we were adding pagination to the housing API. So pagination works by using a unique ID from a record to work out the starting point of the query for the next set of results. So for example, let's say we have a data source that has 10 records in it, and we've designed our API so that we get 3 records per page. So when we make the first request, we get records 1, 2, and 3. So when we make the next request for the next page, we want the query to know where to start from. So we'll look at the ID of the last record in the current page, work out the next query, and in this case, it will be 4. So the next page would give us 4, 5, and 6. But in the case of housing API, for us to do this, we had to use a combination of house ref and person number, because these combined form a unique ID for the record. So the pagination will work by looking at the last record of the current page and work out where to start the query from. What we came across was that there were some records that had blank house refs. So when we queried for the next page, once the pagination would work out the next query by looking at the ID of the last record, there was this likelihood of records being missed. But we have started some investigation into this. And what we have found is that this might not be an issue, as the records that are being skipped would be records without house ref. And these might not be valid records. Most likely they could be test data or junk data that we could ignore, but we're still investigating this to be sure.
I think Ben has started that work, haven't you, Ben? What have you found out?
So I've kind of started and come to several conclusions. From what we have, I've spoken to Nick Prince, so thank you very much to him for his help with regards to this. Anybody think it may well be junk data, but fundamentally, if somebody's not got a housing reference against their identity, that may mean that they have that household has moved out of Hackney, so they wouldn't necessarily be relevant for a housing API dedicated to people living in Hackney. So it may well be that data is not junk, but more old data that's been rendered obsolete because that household has moved out of the borough.
Thank you both. And go back to Humaira to talk about some other things we've been doing.
Right, so going back to us baking our cake, now that our cake has successfully been baked, we've got a couple of stuff left for the icing. So some of the other stuff which we've been doing is the search integration. So we've been doing like a single view, which now uses our Academy API, which is great because we're able to see it being used in production. We're able to sort of look back, see if there is anything which we can improve on. And we're also going to be soon applying our housing API onto the single view. We've also been doing a workshop for our production testing. So when we complete our production testing, we need to make sure that everyone within our team is going by a certain checklist and ensuring that certain things are being completed successfully before it can actually be confirmed that the production is working. So we've created a checklist for that, and our developers were able to justify the exceptions. We've also been doing a little bit of tidying up. So one of our tools was deleted, which we had to re-add and ensure that the Terraform doesn't cause any pipeline failures due to the Terraform version being changed.
Thank you very much. So what questions have people got? I see there's a question in the chat. I'll just open that up. Is housing API the right name for it, Matthew? Possibly not. But Rashmi was keen to not call it the Universal Housing API, partly because UH is going to be deprecated in 12 to 18 months. But yeah, if a name does need to be changed, we can change it.
Why this feels important, because we previously run into challenges when we've called an API something greater than the data that it exposes.
Yeah.
So it isn't about LLPG. It isn't about all properties. It isn't about all housing in the borough. The name almost certainly involves more words. But I think the closer we can get to the kind of Ronseal test of calling it what it is on the tin, the easier we'll be making it for other developers when they're looking to reuse a thing, to know what it is they should be expecting from that API.
No, I totally agree with you. And to be honest, within the team, we do have a bit of a guilty habit of shorthanding some of the names. So we sometimes refer to, we will sometimes drop out a couple of the words that are actually part of the name because we all know what it refers to. So I definitely take your point and I'll feed that back and to Rashmi, and also just get people to double check that our names, that we are sticking to our naming conventions and that the names make sense to people who are not part of our little cohort.
Yeah, cool. Okay.
I think the full name is Housing Resident Information API, but yeah, we do shorten it when we talk about it, which we shouldn't do.
Oh, okay. So this is the set. Is this different from the tenancy and leaseholder contact information API?
Yes,
it's different. Okay.
Yeah. So the Housing Resident Information Platform API takes name, address, etc. from Universal Housing. There is then a separate API for tenancy information, and so on and so forth. But sometimes we do just shorten the name when we're talking about it amongst ourselves.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you, because that's helpful to understand why it's tricky. But I think also worth investing a bit of time to get a bit more clear, because if it's confusing us on the call today, the chance of it confusing a dev in 3 months' time is pretty high.
Oh yes, yeah, I agree totally. Cool. When one of our tasks coming up towards the end of this month is to start work on refreshing the API hub, and a little bit of work has been done on that already, I believe. And so that will have the proper official names in it, because it is intended to act like a catalog to our APIs, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any more? Does anybody have other questions for us today? Matthew, do you have any more questions for us today?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, if there are no more questions, I'd like to take a moment to utterly embarrass Humaira and congratulate her on completing her second year of her apprenticeship. We did say at the start of this project that we wanted it to be a learning experience for everybody involved, and I think we have honoured that commitment over the last 3-4 months. And yeah, congratulations to Humaira.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Really pleased. Well done, Humaira.
Thank you.
So if there are no other comments or questions, I think we can end the meeting now. Thank you very much, everybody, for your time, and see you in a couple of weeks. Thank you.
Have a good day.
Bye all. Thank you.